Welcome to Your Capital What's Up. I'm Chuck Wiger, your area state senator. Thank you very much for watching. Today my guest is Jennie Kula. She's the lead social worker in District 622, the North St. Paul Maplewood Oakdale School District. Welcome to our show, Jennie.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, nice to have you. And you've been a social worker for nearly 25 years or more, if we could share.
Actually, 25 years in the school district here in District 622, and then 3 years in Memphis and 3 years in Illinois prior to that, so a long time.
Well, you are an expert, so congratulations on that service, and with hundreds of young people and parents and others that you've worked with. And in fact, for my generation, there probably weren't social workers that even worked in the schools back then. And it's not that life was less complicated, perhaps a little bit, but there's just a lot more concerns and challenges, and the importance of getting students, ahead and not giving up, and why we have social workers and the schools. And so, tell us about your role as a social worker. And we have hundreds of social workers, throughout, not just in Minnesota, but throughout our country, working. And we've made it a priority, in fact, at the legislature, to provide some additional funds for counselors, social workers, chemical dependency counselors, nurses, key persons and psychologists, key people that are involved in the success of students. And tell us about the role of the social worker in school.
Well, I can tell you how the role has evolved in my 25 years.
Yes.
When I started, things were much simpler. You would have a student who would qualify for special education, a student would qualify as learning disabled, kind of classic learning disabled child. They'd have a learning disability in reading. These days, we don't seem to find that anymore. Kids are coming much more complicated. There's rarely just a learning disability in reading. There's so much more to these kids these days to figure out. I used to be able to do a lot more groups. I used to do like a healthy kids group and a lot of family change groups for kids where families were going through divorce. And that was really needed, but as time has gone on, we seem to deal more and more with crisis situations. We have so many homeless families in our district now, and kids are coming to us with a lot more needs. And so we're sort of responding to crisis every day. That's pretty much what all the social workers are doing. We try to do groups and we try to meet regularly with kids. And we can do that to some degree. But for the most part, it's responding to what the kids need in that moment.
Now, it's the legislature doesn't mandate that there be X amount of social workers or counselors, nurses, etc. It's up to the local school board, and then often up to the building principal to decide what is the best mix of staff to help students succeed with a limited budget. You're going to have a certain amount of teachers, but in addition to the classroom teacher, you need others to provide those essential services that are going to make it a more successful likelihood for that student. So, for example, at Oakdale or Skyview, schools that you've been very active in, the principal would work with others to come up with that staffing ratio, and tell us about that decision process that there is going to be a social worker at the school.
Well, when I started back in 91, we were 0.5 in buildings. Some of us were only 0.25, so we had 4 schools to be in. And over time
so now... you spent a lot of time just driving.
Yes, we did. And so now, though, we are moving more and more toward full-time social work in every building. We're not quite there yet. But that's kind of, I think, the goal. And I know that, Corey McIntyre has been working hard for that, and I think that eventually we're going to get there. It's very hard. It was very hard for me. Right now I'm at Skyview Middle and Oakdale. I love Skyview Middle very much, but it's very hard for me to tell my Oakdale kids who are having a crisis that, I can't see you again until day after tomorrow. They need you
in
there.
A crisis.
In a crisis. They need you there every day. They need to know you're going to be there when they come to school the next day. So they have somebody that they can talk to. And some of them, they need that just to go on with their day. So it's hard to be every other day.
Could you give us some examples of some of the real life things that you deal with in students? And of course, respecting privacy, but just issues that happen. You mentioned there's a number of students that are homeless that don't, they may not have had a meal the night before or even for breakfast. They may not have medical care or dental care. There may be a great deal of friction at home. There may be violence they're engaged, but and this young person coming to school and with a lot of expectations and then trying to cope.
Right. That is, you said it. I mean, you really said it well. That's pretty much what we face every day. The kids come to school with a lot of baggage from home and domestic violence, a lot of homelessness. A lot of what we help with is to make sure those homeless kids have what they need. We also arrange the McKinney-Vento busing so that when they, because a lot of them move from shelter to shelter or they double up with friends.
Mention that again, the busing program.
The McKinney-Vento busing is set up so that homeless kids don't have to leave their school, so that they still have that stable base. So if we have a student, say, that lives in Oakdale that loses their housing and they have to double up with relatives in St. Paul, we can send a bus and bring that student back to school so they have the stability of school. And we do that many times. I've changed bus every 2 weeks for a student to keep them at our school because we're the only safe place they have. So
that's a really important point. This is the safe place.
Right.
Where they can go, and of course we do have some shelters in the district. A safe place too would be at the Tubman shelter.
Right.
But
they do great work.
And something I've had the honor of working on. And but a lot of these young people and the families, they're seeking a real violent type life or problem, and they're trying to start anew. And life goes on, and so 622 other school districts too work right at the shelter. And to try to get this person and their families to give them some hope.
Right, and our homeless population has really just gone up dramatically over the last couple of years. It's really hard to keep up on. I know the social workers really scramble to get those buses arranged and get the families what they need. And
and you're dealing with privacy issues too. Sometimes they're trying to get away from restraining orders. Others, where there's been some really sad things that have happened. But the kids, they got to be in school. And as a social worker, then you're trying. You would be involved in just getting the bus organized and other services. You mentioned special ed. There might be medical issues, a whole number of things, and so it could take a lot of time just for one person. It can
take a lot of time, and I've often said, I can do a lot more sometimes on the phone in 30 minutes to help a student and a family than I can with a child right in front of me. Because a lot of times it's connecting them to the resources that they need to help the family to get out of the situation that they're in, or help the family find resources for counseling or therapy or things to help their child. So, we do an awful lot of that, awful lot of referrals to other places. And you had mentioned all the things that the kids come to school with. We're doing a lot of work this year on trauma, and the ACEs study, adverse childhood experiences. Corey McIntyre really sort of gave us a mission early in the start of the school year that this is what...
And for viewers, Corey was 622?
Corey's the Director of Special Services.
Yes. Okay.
And he said, we really want to go in this direction, and we were really excited about it because we know we need to go in this direction. And so we've been going to a lot of trainings on trauma and how adverse childhood experiences impact children. And the things that we can do at school to help them. So we've been really educating ourselves. So we've also created a trauma training team in the district. So it's Jen Miley, counselor at Skyview Middle, Olivia Verrett, counselor at Skyview Middle, Heidi Schabach, the psychologist at Skyview Middle, Kayla Felton, who is replacing me at Skyview Middle next year. She'll be the social worker there. PBIS specialist now. And myself. And so
PBIS being Positive Behavioral Intervention Specialist. That's a very important role.
Oh, gosh, they're great.
We're providing additional funds at the
them in our
legislature.
I don't know what we ever did without them in our buildings. They're fantastic. But she was in that role, and then she did a social work internship with me, and then she's going to take my position at Skyview Middle when I'm full-time at Oakdale next year. So we have that training team, and we've been going around doing some trainings. It's a 2-hour training, and we're going to continue to do that in the district next year. And just continue to go to trainings ourselves because there's still so much we have to learn about trauma and how it impacts our kids.
Well,
Yeah.
a significant mission, very important, and when you develop a plan, if you will, with that student's parent or parents, maybe the grandparents are involved, the classroom teacher as well, and you have to respect privacy rights, of course. But does it all seem to come together?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes.
There's a lot of challenges on that road.
Yes, there's a lot of challenges, and a lot. It's you never know when you're talking to teachers. It's kind of on a need to know thing. You know they need to know about their students to help them the best. There are some things I don't share if it's not pertinent because it is confidential information. And a lot of times the kids will tell us about their trauma.
Yes.
A lot of times we hear things from the kids and we know this child's had a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
Or if we see that the student's been in 6 schools, in the past 3 years, we know, okay, something's happening here that's not stable for this child. So, and one child may experience something totally different from another. A divorce might be extremely traumatic to one child and another child might breeze through it and be resilient and be okay. So you just never know.
Yeah. To become a social worker, you have a master's degree, and actually 2 of my daughters are social workers, and I'm very aware of the high bar for getting there and the training. But tell us about the training program that to become a social worker, or for example, and you're from outside of Minnesota, but came here, and we welcome you here. And you're definitely Minnesotan now after more than 25 years.
Right.
But tell us about the rigorous road for becoming a social worker. It's very similar for being a teacher or in other professional areas with often having the master's degree certificate. So becoming a social worker, tell us about that.
Well, you can get your bachelor's in social work, and you can do a lot of different things with that bachelor's degree. But a lot more doors open when you go on and get your master's. I'm from Illinois, so when I got my when I was in school in Illinois, they don't let you become a school social worker without your master's degree. So you have to have your master's degree, and you have to have had an internship in the schools during that master's program in order to graduate and get certificate to work in the schools. So, but Minnesota doesn't have it that way. You can get a school social work license with a bachelor's in social work, but most districts want you to have a master's. And I'm really proud of the social workers in our district because we set the bar high for ourselves. Years ago, we said we all want to become clinically licensed, even though you don't have to be clinically licensed to be a school social worker. We wanted to be, so almost all of us are, which would mean, if we worked outside of a school, we could do therapy, we could diagnose, those kind of things. So we're proud of that fact, and we're a pretty good department. We don't have a lot of turnover. A lot of us have been around for just years and years and years. And there's a lot of pluses to that because I have the kids of my kids now.
Oh,
yeah, and that's really fun. I like go get the yearbook and I show look at your dad when he was your age. I show them their parents' pictures in the yearbook. It's really fun. Yeah. But it is a lot. You have to have a lot of supervision to get that clinical license, ongoing supervision, and then you have to test and take. It's a big 4-hour exam to get it. And
it is rigorous, and that
it's
exam
rigorous.
And that, but. And that's why it's so important that we have the properly trained people, and again, it's going to help us get more students, graduated and ready for college career, and just in addition to the academic part, just being more mentally able to cope. When you deal with that all the time. So.
And our kids are having more and more trouble just regulating their emotions every day at school. We have kids that just can't. They get frustrated the slightest bit, and they just can't. They can't handle it, and they'll act out, and they'll say things they don't mean, and they need a place to go
adults
to calm
do too.
down. Oh, sometimes adults do, absolutely. And that's part of the whole trauma training that we're going through. Is we have to learn how to respond in a very calm way to these students and make them feel safe. And even when they're pushing our buttons, because they can do it, they can push your buttons, to just sort of be accepting and calm, even if they're telling you that they hate you, so that they know that you do care about them and you welcome them at school.
And there's a lot of programs that you share with other social workers and teams. You talk as to what might be the best way to de-escalate a situation or to get a proactive plan to prevent some things. So a lot of different programs I know that are in place, and that you can find out more at the particular school.
Right, and every school has teams. I mean, we work a lot in teams that just all we do is problem solve about the kids, and the teams
Yes.
are the counselor, psychologist, assistant principal, everybody. Teams are different in every building, but we just meet, and we meet as long as it takes to sort of figure out what's going to help this particular student.
Great. Well, Jennie Kula, thank you so much for your work, your professional career as a social worker in 622, making a significant impact. Any concluding words you'd like to share with our viewers?
No, just thanks for having me here. I'm glad it's summer. I'm in a good mood.
Okay. Well, and so fun to have been at a lot of these graduation ceremonies at whatever level the students are going to next. And we thank you for the part that you've had in making life a little bit better, or a lot better, for a lot of these students and their families. And viewers, we appreciate all the work of the social workers and others in our school districts and others that provide help for families. If there's anything that you would like to get more information on for the schools, I invite you to contact a particular school, school district, whichever district you might live in, and I know they'd like to share that information, and perhaps there's ways that you'd like to get involved as a volunteer as well. If you have questions of me, I invite you to call me. My cell phone is 651-770-0283. With Jennie Kula, I'm Chuck Wiger. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Jennie.